This is CBC Vancouver News.
Incredibly important that British Columbians have access to emergency information.
As wildfires burn in BC already, the province and Ottawa again urge the owners of Facebook to unblock access to Canadian news. Plus,
they're saying the products are very good for the environment, very good for the climate, and they are terrible.
Accused of greenwashing, Canada's competition watchdog looks into Lululemon's environmental practices.
Canuck fan, are you living with an Oiler fan?
And it's Canucks versus Oilers with battle lines drawn in the sand. What do you do in a house divided? Good evening, I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Thanks for joining us. BC is staring down the barrel of yet another potentially destructive wildfire season. The provincial and federal governments are again urging the owners of Facebook and Instagram to unblock Canadian news sources. As Liam Britton reports, they say it's a matter of public safety.
Feel the heat?
Oh my God.
Last year, wildfires in BC forced 48,000 people from their homes, some given just minutes to leave. 28,000 square kilometers, an area about the size of Albania, went up in flames, double the previous record. And amid a month-long provincial state of emergency, officials claim social media companies did not help.
I call on Facebook again. Mr. Zuckerberg, open up access to Canadian media so that British Columbians can share critical local information so they can be safe. It's incredibly frustrating to me.
This year, wildfires are already burning in BC, and experts warn this season could be destructive again. The provincial government is once again imploring Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, to unblock Canadian news on its platforms when critical information needs to get out.
It's important for us to explore all opportunities available to us to bring that information to where people are at, and a lot of people are on social media.
So, why is Meta blocking Canadian news? Now, this is because of the Federal Online News Act. That's a piece of legislation that compels tech giants to pay when they use Canadian outlets' stories on their platforms. So far, Alphabet, which owns Google and YouTube, has agreed to pay, but Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, has not. And since July, they haven't allowed any Canadian news on their platforms. And experts say at a time of crisis, when information is critical, that is a problem.
Because you have a segment of the population that doesn't rely on newspapers. And, the vast majority of Canadians, and statistics show this, get most of their content from social media.
Daniel Chai is an adjunct professor of business law and technology at the University of Toronto.
Companies like Meta and other large big tech companies like to trumpet their corporate social responsibility. But when it really comes down to it, they're just focused on the almighty buck. And they're willing to compromise and put people's health and safety at risk.
Chai argues the feds could compel Meta to share information during emergencies and could take a harder line with the company.
I don't think we've had a government that's really demonstrated the courage to really stand up to big tech.
The federal heritage minister today slammed Meta, once again urging the company to unblock news, especially during wildfire season, adding, quote, "Their actions send a troubling message. They consider themselves above oversight in the public interest, legislation promised during elections, and even the smallest and most reasonable regulation." Meta did not respond to CBC's request for comment. So while the focus over the next few months will be what happens on the front lines, it's not clear who will share what information online. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's competition watchdog is investigating Lululemon's environmental practices. This comes after an advocacy group filed a complaint against the clothing giant. Nisha Patel has more on why the company is being accused of greenwashing.
Lululemon makes activewear that's known around the world. Now climate activists allege the company is misleading its customers.
They're saying the products are very good for the environment, very good for the climate, and they are terrible. They create massive amounts of climate pollution.
Environmental group Stand.Earth claims the brand markets itself as climate friendly while creating massive greenhouse gas emissions.
We made a move for the planet. You'll never feel the difference.
The Competition Bureau is investigating and says there's no conclusion of wrongdoing at this time. But if the watchdog finds the complaint is valid, Lululemon could face hefty fines. Though what advocates really want from the retailer is change.
We would like to create a win-win solution with Lululemon to see them really target and eliminate the climate pollution in their supply chain.
Experts say it's not just Lululemon. Climate impact remains a big issue across the fashion industry.
Lots of polyester, all of these petroleum-derived synthetic fabrics. And when we produce them at the scale, even if we did it sustainably, there's still going to be impact.
And shoppers say that's something they're thinking about.
It definitely does bother me because they are such a big company. They probably have a lot more resources to be more eco-friendly and green.
Well, it bothers me when any company says they're going to do something and they sort of greenwash.
Lululemon didn't respond to a request for comment, but the company has stated in the past that it's committed to its decarbonization plan. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Police have released a sketch of a suspect in an alleged sexual assault involving a victim in her 80s. It happened in Burnaby's Central Park in February. The suspect is said to be a man between 40 and 45 years old. Police say the victim was walking through a park trail when she was approached. The suspect allegedly groped the victim and tried to kiss her. Vancouver police are investigating after a stranger tried to lure an 11-year-old girl in East Vancouver last night. It happened around 6:40 near East 33rd Avenue and St. Catherine Street. The girl was walking home when a man on a bike called out to her, asking her to come with him. She walked away but was followed. She then sought help from a driver passing by who took her home. The suspect is described as a tall Caucasian man in his 30s. A full description of him is available online. 3 suspects accused in the murder of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar are scheduled to appear in a Surrey court tomorrow. The 3 Indian nationals are each charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Nijjar was killed last June outside the Surrey Gurdwara where he was president. His murder threw Canada's relationship with India into disarray after the Prime Minister suggested Indian government officials may have played a role in his death. Legislation aimed at tackling foreign interference in Canada was introduced in Ottawa today. As Catherine Cullen reports, it includes new powers for Canada's spy agency and a registry for anyone working on behalf of foreign governments.
It's an effort to crack down on foreign meddling.
A bill which would give Canada new, modern tools to combat foreign interference.
That issue has been a political headache for the government and a personal one for other Canadians. Gloria Fung says she has faced death threats for speaking out against the Chinese government.
I have also been constantly warned by anonymous caller not to interfere with the Hong Kong or China issues, even though I'm now a proud Canadian.
She's among those who have pushed for a foreign influence registry.
With this registry, we hope that we can change these circumstances and putting a heavy cost to foreign interference.
Indeed, all the federal parties have called for one.
We must establish a foreign influence registry to identify all the foreign agents that foment disagreement and division.
This plan would require anyone to register if they're exerting political influence for a foreign power, break the rules, and there could be fines, even criminal penalties, with hopes the registry will be up and running before the next election.
We would hope that all of this legislation will be in place.
But the intimidation of those diaspora communities most intensely affected is likely harder to stop.
Most of the pressure that's put on them is put on them by clandestine agents who aren't going to come and tell us that they're doing what they're doing.
Though the legislation deals with other national security concerns too, that part of the plan could be the biggest help to those facing pressure.
It's created new criminal offenses that really are designed to sanction those kinds of transnational repressions, harassment, intimidation, threats of violence, blackmail, coercion, whatever it might be.
Well, here in BC, concerns are being raised over alleged election interference in Richmond. On Friday, an inquiry suggested foreign interference in 2021 may have cost a federal candidate his seat. Our John Hernandez reports on the fallout.
I think late it's better than never.
You could call it vindication for Kenny Chiu. The former Conservative MP lost his Steveston Richmond East seat to Parm Bains by about 3,000 votes in 2021. He raised concerns about foreign interference in the election, spurring a public inquiry. A report released on Friday suggested there was a reasonable possibility meddling cost Chiu his seat.
Canada is a fertile ground for foreign interference. The diaspora communities, unfortunately, is at the front line and they get the brunt of it.
The report cited misinformation about Chiu that was spread by online outlets and social media sites with ties to Beijing.
Canadians may have lost a little bit of confidence in our electoral system.
A finding that comes as no surprise to this former Canadian intelligence official.
And that is kind of the end game of a lot of authoritarian states. Their contempt for liberal democracies is we'll eventually not participate and not see them as valid.
Concerns now mounting in Richmond where residents may have been targeted.
English is not our first language. Even though we watch English news, many diaspora, including the Chinese community, we watch and receive news in Chinese.
Civic education advocate Ken Tung says misinformation can be hard to avoid for many. He says possible influence of Beijing over the community is upsetting.
We moved to Canada is want to leave all the threat behind. And now it feel like it is all the threat and unsafe situation is following us.
Tung says what's needed is a public platform where people can report misinformation to stop it from spreading. He's also calling on community members to look out for themselves and each other.
If you have the engagement, you can receive proper information.
The federal inquiry will now look at ways to stop foreign meddling, with more hearings expected later this year. John Hernandez, CBC News, Richmond.
London Drugs says almost 40 of its 79 stores in Western Canada have reopened a week after a cybersecurity incident forced them to close. The pharmacies are filling emergency prescriptions only. The company says it's still working with cybersecurity experts to return online and confirm whether people's personal information was compromised. Well, the Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers are set to take the ice in a Stanley Cup playoff battle not seen since the 90s. The competition is set to be fierce on and off the rink, especially, as Karis Hogg explains, if you live in a home where the battle lines are very clear.
Hi, I'm Karis, and I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. I have been ever since I was a wee little kid. So I'm very excited that they're in the second round of the playoffs. The Vancouver Canucks are playing the Edmonton Oilers starting on Wednesday. But here's the thing. I'm married to an Edmonton Oilers fan. How are we going to navigate this playoff series? This has never happened in our relationship before. The last time the Vancouver Canucks met the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs was 1992. Are you in this same situation? Canuck fan, are you living with an Oiler fan? Or Oiler fan, are you living with a Canuck fan? Maybe a partner, a relative, a roommate. How are you going to navigate this playoff series? I would love to hear how you're going to do it because I have no idea what we're going to do. Send me an email, karis.hogg@cbc.ca. Go Canucks, go.
Okay, staying with sports, athletes continue to prepare as the Summer Olympics in Paris approach. Justina Di Stasio has almost 20 years of wrestling under her belt and is now getting ready for the biggest match of her life. Jackie McKay caught up with the Cree athlete at practice.
You just come in and you show up and you give it your all. That way, no matter what happens in August, there's nothing you could have done better.
Can you just introduce why we're talking to you and say your First Nation for me?
I am the 76 kilogram rep for Team Canada for wrestling this summer in the Olympic Games, and I'm a member of Norway House Cree Nation. It seems awesome right now, I'm going to the Olympics, but if you follow my story, it's like this, and I think the most important part is that I keep coming back even when it's not awesome. I didn't know how badly I wanted to be an Olympian and make it to the Olympics until that opportunity was almost taken away. It's taken 2 Olympic cycles, but finally we're almost there.
Now that you've qualified for the Olympics, what's the goal?
I want to win the Olympics. It's important to have that goal in mind every day, and when training gets hard or when you're tired or whatever, I just say to myself, I'll do anything to win the Olympics, and it's almost like an extra push.
Well, how do we get more Indigenous wrestlers to the Olympics and sports at that level?
Indigenous communities, sometimes they're more rural communities, so all you really need is a partner. As much as it's just fun, play wrestle with people, to get it to the point where all these kids can learn and come and build confidence. If they have a coach that can lead them, I think that's a big part of the process. If you're an Indigenous kid, if you're not an Indigenous kid, if you're a boy or a girl, whatever your sport you're joining, sports are really, really hard, so don't think you only have to love it because you're winning. And even if you're not winning at the beginning, stick with it. I was winning at the beginning, but then I was not, and if I quit, I never would have been here. So find something you like and find a reason to fall in love with it besides winning.
A Taylor Swift fan says she has bad blood with the travel website Booking.com. We'll tell you why next. A Taylor Swift fan says there's bad blood between her and popular travel website Booking.com. That's after her accommodations were canceled and the place she thought she'd secured was relisted by the rental site at a higher price. She took her story to Rosa Marcatelli and our Go Public team.
If you see this, it's a safe bet you're looking at some serious Taylor Swift fans. Swifties, as they're called. Sarah Fournier is one of them. So as soon as the megastar announced a Toronto concert date, Fournier started making plans with her brother and some friends to travel from Montreal for the November show.
My first thought was to go to Booking.com. I just knew that it was going to be difficult to get accommodations later on.
She booked 2 places, then swiftly scored concert tickets. But just when she thought everything was set, Booking.com told her her accommodations had been canceled.
I just knew something was not right.
Fournier tried to get Booking.com to step up and help her get a similar place at a similar price. They didn't.
Here's the problem. Consumers think what they book on travel websites like Booking.com is locked in, but they shouldn't count on it, according to this technology expert.
Don't believe that Booking.com and other companies have got your back.
The only help Booking.com offered Fournier was a link for other places. By this time, demand and prices had skyrocketed. She then called one of the properties directly for help. Instead, this was the answer she got.
So you don't see an issue with that?
Absolutely not. Our goal in business is to maximize profit.
Booking.com's terms of service clearly say they're not responsible when customers don't get what they're promised. But the expert says they can't legally waive potential responsibility.
There are legal protections for representations that are false, misleading, or deceptive that induce consumers into transactions.
Booking.com tells Go Public both of the properties Fournier booked were removed from the site after not meeting the website's terms and conditions, saying Fournier's experience is extremely rare. She's not buying it. In the end, a family friend offered his place to stay. Now that she can count on. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
And you're looking at a live shot of Cambie Street and BC Place. We've got your full forecast next.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Welcome back. Well, Darius Mahdavi is taking some well-earned time off, so Victor Paolo joins us now with the forecast. Victor?
Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic Monday. Taking a look at a couple of headlines and what's in store for our weather. Well, we do know it was a cloudy day today. Not as clear and sunny as we would like it to be for someone like myself that is a huge fan of clear skies. But those thunder showers is what we're expecting when it comes to tonight, a chance of thunder showers. But once we get into about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning for mainland Vancouver and the surrounding area, well, guess what? It's going to be clear skies. We're expecting those clouds to clear. And once those clouds clear, we're going to have ourselves a streak of sunny days and clear nights, as you do see over here. Now, as we take a look at some daytime highs all across, well, let's take a look at the west here. Let's focus on, where we're located. Vancouver, 15 degrees, and they do say if May 7th, your temperature is in double digits compared to your neighbors who might be in single digits, chances are you're going to win that playoff series. I know I'm rooting for the Canucks. Now, taking a look at what else the weather's going to be for the rest of this week, well, it's going to be tied 16-16 when it comes to the highs for Wednesday. But when it comes to Thursday, look who takes the lead, 2-1. Vancouver is going to be at 21 degrees, Edmonton at 20. Now, here's what else is going to be happening when it comes to your weather. Taking a look for tonight, it's going to be 9 degrees. And as we talked about, you're going to see the cloudy skies, and there will be a chance of thunder showers. So make sure if you do hear that thunder roar, make sure you go indoors. And as we transition into the morning, we talked about the clear skies, those clouds getting out of the way, and we get to experience a whole lot of sunlight. It's going to be around 10 degrees by the time we start. Now, as we get later on into the day, it's going to get to as high as about 14 degrees. Speaking of temperatures for the next 5 days, look at this great streak of weather. We got a 14-degree Wednesday, 15-degree Wednesday, correction, and then we eventually get towards 20 degrees by the time we reach Friday. And Saturday, we see a bit of cloud cover working its way in. But you know what? On a weekend, if everyone's going to be out and about, a little bit of cloud cover to give us a bit of blocking from the sun, it's not all that bad. Hope you all have yourselves a great rest of your night, and over to you.
Thanks, Victor. And that is your late news for Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website. That's cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1, and that starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.